The Logitech G Cloud handheld launched in the fall of 2022. It's now 2024, but I did review it at that time. Lots of positive and negative things to say about the device back then, but I've been meaning to revisit it in a video for a while now. Has my opinions of this device changed over the past year and a half? Have things gotten better or worse? Is Logitech even still supporting this thing? So when I first used the G Cloud, I didn't necessarily have a bad time with it. It mostly worked fine for me. It is comfortable to hold. The buttons and analog sticks seem okay. The D-pad, while nowhere near perfect, was okay. The screen quality was fine. The speakers are good. The battery life, excellent. The build quality overall is really nice. Now, this thing had actually saved my sanity over a period of a couple days a while back when we were having like some power outages in my area. Connected the thing to a hotspot, had a full battery, watched a bunch of movies, shows, played some games off and on without having to worry about recharging it. The battery life really is one of its biggest pros. But the biggest downside was the cost. This thing launched at $350 freaking dollars. Makes no sense for a device marketed as a cloud-based gaming handheld, in my opinion. Like, you don't really need like high-end specs. You don't need $350 worth of specs, and this thing, my opinion, didn't really have $350 worth of specs, but okay, that's neither here nor there. There were more capable devices in that price range at that time, and still are. And what this thing is able to do, you could do with most cell phones in a less than $100 controller attachment. That's kind of the high end, right? You could just use any controller you already have. So price-wise, I did start seeing sales at the around $300 point at, shortly after launch. But has it gone down even lower now that it's been like a full year and a half? I haven't really seen too many people talking about this thing anymore. Well, not exactly. I do see sales around $270 occasionally, but mostly I see it listed at $300, like on Best Buy. Everywhere's got it at $300. I saw it once on Amazon for $270 recently. And Logitech themselves, they say the new price is $300. The price range I think it should be in is nowhere to be found for a new unit. Maybe for a used one, somebody who just wants to get rid of it. I mean, I thought between $150 to $200 would be a more reasonable price. But, we all have different opinions on what's worth it for the price. Even if it was $150, there's going to be people out there who don't think it's worth it or don't see the value. So I do think, personally, it's still overpriced for what it is. But has the user experience improved? Now, there have been 7 major firmware updates over the past year, and some of these updates definitely make the user experience better. So you now have access to customized sensitivity and dead zones for the analog sticks and shoulder buttons. There's also one of the big things is virtual button mapping, which is going to allow you to assign the G Cloud's built-in controls, the actual controller, to touchscreen actions in games that don't allow you to use the controller. That definitely makes things better for a lot of Android games. So there were a few very popular games I found couldn't use the G Cloud's built-in controls when it first came out, making me more so wonder who this thing was for at the time. But glad there is now an easier workaround. So that's cool. You can also now output video from the G Cloud to your TV or monitor by using a USB-C to HDMI adapter, which is how I recorded some of the footage for this video. Another welcome addition is the ability for multitasking. Wow. Simply having multiple apps running at once. Not really groundbreaking, I guess, but at the time when it came out, I guess you couldn't do that. I don't know. That's kind of crazy, but cool. You could do that now. So my experience lately using this handheld has been mostly good, but not perfect. Playing games via streaming or cloud with Xbox Cloud Gaming, NVIDIA GeForce Now, and Steam Link all mostly works fine for me. On occasion, though, perhaps my internet just doesn't want to play nicely, and things do become fairly unplayable if I'm gaming through cloud-based apps. For that kind of experience, you have to have a solid-ass wireless internet connection, which I do. But unfortunately, the G Cloud doesn't support Wi-Fi 6 or 6E, so I cannot take full advantage of my Wi-Fi setup here. I'm using Eero 6 Pro, set up with multiple units throughout my house, overkill. And there's days where it just doesn't work great. I don't know if it's the G Cloud's end or if it's the cloud service end. It is what it is. It's not a perfect experience. I'm not necessarily one who's been a fan of cloud gaming. Some people enjoy it. others don't. It is what it is. But this device, I mean, you could use it for other things, native Android apps and whatnot. But with the actual cloud stuff, there are some days where it feels near flawless and almost like I'm playing on other hardware and not streaming. At other times, the graphics just look really bad and I have connection issues. But like I said, playing native Android apps and games, you're not going to have that kind of problem since it's not streaming. It's not going over the cloud. So overall, while I think the hardware is nice, it's just as nice as it was when it first came out in 2022. It's now 2024, and it can be very useful for the right person. I do still find it hard to recommend the G Cloud at its current price point. Like, that's the biggest criticism here. At the price point, who is this for? Like, there's just so many other devices that could do the same thing that you already own. Like, it just is what it is, I know the G Cloud has its fans, but I think for more people to want to purchase one, the price needs to reflect the actual hardware. Now, that's a tough thing, though, because like Valve, for example, they can offset their hardware price by making up for it with game sales. Logitech, though, they're not in that same boat. So maybe we won't ever see a drastic price cut unless they decide to just drop the product and blow out remaining stock. I mean, these handhelds, not necessarily cloud streaming handhelds, but handhelds in general, have been having a huge resurgence lately with handheld gaming PCs, Android devices coming out of China, Ambernic stuff, things like that, little Linux devices, emulation handhelds. There's a lot of cool stuff going on out there, and I do think the Logitech G Cloud is an awesome handheld, but it's just, like I said, the price. $300? The cheapest Steam Deck is $350 right now. Like $50 more than a G Cloud. Which would you rather have? The G Cloud at $300? Very limited in what you can actually do with it, though nice piece of hardware. Or a Steam Deck for $50 more that you could do a ton of stuff with. I mean, they're two different things, but they're gaming handhelds, so it's hard to not compare the two. So while I wish this thing was priced more accordingly and was more popular, just hard for me to recommend. So yeah, almost like a year and a half, almost 2 years later, from 2022 to 2024, while I can appreciate the new stuff that Logitech has incorporated in this thing, it's still not something I can confidently or like respectfully recommend to people. Unless you see the value in it, go for it. It's your money. Do what you want. But there you go. Appreciate y'all. Bye.